Good evening, Niner faithful. Welcome to another 49ers live mailbag episode. I'm thrilled to be continuing these as we launch into the offseason. Now, the second week of the offseason for the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, there is still excitement brewing about a Super Bowl that we're not involved in, right? Everybody wants to know, can the Bengals knock off the Rams? But that is not what most of the questions were aimed at this week. As always, this 49ers mailbag will be a mix of both live content from people who are here in the chat participating as we stream and people that previously submitted questions via Twitter or 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. Those previously submitted questions will get the more thought out, thorough answers from your host, Rob Shue. And those that ask the questions in the chat will get the off-the-cuff answer. So depending on what you're after, you could go a different direction with this, because some of you may want to hear, well, a step-by-step prognostication of just how it might work out. And some of you might just want to know exactly what I think in that moment. So I want to say thank you to those that are here already in the chat. There's excitement about it. The notorious GAV has some epic comments in there that were going back and forth before the beginning of the broadcast. And I had to call that out because Gav, you are priceless in there. I love what you are asking about Mike McDaniel. And yes, I don't know that there's anyone else on staff that gives off that same Mike McDaniel vibe that you're referring to, nor do I know the status in Miami, as you ask. Glad to see that there are plenty sneakerheads in the audience, as well as folks just coming in to appreciate the mailbag as well. Love all of you, regardless of whether you follow the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the videos. Any of that is all just gravy. If you're here watching it, that's the most important thing, and I appreciate you. Let's jump into some of the previously submitted questions. Again, if you are here live and want to put your own question in the chat, hit @Rob or @RobShue before typing out your question so that I know you're talking to me. Like Karthik is right here, @Rob. I'll hook you up with a question next week. Karthik is almost relentless at bringing in previously submitted questions. I wondered if I was going to get one today. He's going to come through next week, but we had plenty coming in. I was very pleasantly surprised by the off-season energy that we got from Twitter today. All right, let's get into the first question, which carried through to several questions, a common theme. What are your thoughts of the 49ers hiring Anthony Lynn, and what do you think he will bring to this organization in 2022? That coming from SG Warriors 51 on Twitter. To me, I'm going to approach this in two ways. The first is I truly believe that the San Francisco 49ers coaching staff, and I said this on the program, I believe that they needed to bring in new blood. They needed new blood, a fresh, trusted voice within the organization. The trust with Anthony Lynn goes back a long way for the Shanahan family. Not only did he have a short stint as a running back with the San Francisco 49ers, he had two stints with the Denver Broncos, the second of which was under Coach Mike Shanahan and Bobby Turner, the timeless Bobby Turner. He then was an assistant coach underneath Shanahan right after his playing career. So there is that trust established. But what I mean by new blood is I think it's been well documented that Coach Kyle Shanahan and his staff have unfortunately gotten tight in some of the worst moments in franchise history. I mean, you can go back to his time with Atlanta as offensive coordinator, but certainly with the San Francisco 49ers, two very key 10-point leads in games that you'd like to hold on to it and win in order to take home a championship. And the 49ers play calling, their game management, things like that seem to tighten up and were at times, if we're honest, a bit suspect. It would have been insanity in my book to promote from inside, to promote Bobby Slowick to offensive coordinator without bringing in fresh blood and to expect there to be a noticeable difference. Now, let me clarify that by saying I do believe people are capable of change. I do believe Coach Shanahan is capable of growth. And I have also stated before that my belief is in being in those high pressure moments, in having those opportunities over and over again, that you will naturally progress as a leader and as a play caller in those moments. So I do think there's some growth happening for Kyle Shanahan, but to really change the effect of it, bringing in that new blood, bringing in a fresh voice for those moments seems paramount to me. From a run game perspective, and I'm going to give a big shout out to Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic for the following information. But on the run game perspective, I see this as a very solid move. In particular, once we found out that Mike McDaniel had been hired by the Dolphins. I don't think that this move was made in a vacuum. I believe they were aware Mike McDaniel had a chance to be hired, but that he might also be back. I think that the relationship could have worked either way. I do believe the 49ers are the strong beneficiaries of it with Mike McDaniel departing for Miami. They needed someone to fill that void. But look back at the effect that Lynn has had on the teams that he was with. He had a balanced rushing attack for Buffalo when he was involved as a run game coordinator and then later the offensive coordinator in the 15 and 16 seasons. And over his time as the head coach with the Chargers as well. And a key difference here for those units, highly effective in the run game. Number one overall in 2016 with Buffalo. None of those units had the run blocking lines that the Niners had this past year. Now, the Niners will need to keep that line together. Free agency is going to be a test for San Francisco. Both Daniel Brunskill and, more importantly, Laken Tomlinson need to be decided on. Tom Compton is also going to be a free agent, and whether we will need him back with Mike McGlinchey recovering from his torn quad is still a question mark. But out of those Bills attacks with McCoy and Mike Gillislee, which I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, if I'm being honest about it, they were the two most efficient runners in the NFL in 2016. But Buffalo's offense did have that top-rated grade that year. But so those two things combined, they were the most efficient runners. Buffalo did have the top-rated rushing attack that year, both positives. But the Bills ranked number 16 in adjusted line yards. So that rushing push from the line just wasn't there per DVOA. The Niners significantly higher with that. So you could see a really supercharged freaking run game by the Niners this coming year. The Chargers, number one in that same category in 2018 with Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, both as top 15 backs in defense adjusted value over average. And again, the Chargers graded number 17 overall in run blocking efficiency that year. So again, both of those units highly effective without the dominant line that the San Francisco 49ers have and have had for some time. Seem to be able to generate with additional players outside of that starting five along the offensive line. A couple of other things to note is Lynn's propensity for an up-tempo focus. An emphasis on playing with more tempo, both in no huddle and play-to-play scenarios. He is also a zone-heavy attack guy. He's got balance between the inside and outside runs. He is known for his ability to schematically adapt to personnel and attack opposing defenses from a number of different angles. He is likely to use significant motions, shifts, and differing personnel groups and alignments as well, trying to get the faster players open out in space. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it, Niner faithful? Sounds a little bit like something the San Francisco 49ers have already been doing. Lynn looks to create space and mismatches or advantages before the snap And that way you don't have to dominate every block out there on the field. You can have both the creative and smash mouth rushing attack at the same time. He was able to get a dominant run game going with Phillip Rivers behind center. Imagine if he had gotten more years with Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert was fond of his relationship with Lynn. He certainly mentioned it in explaining how he believed in Lynn and had grown close with him during that rookie campaign. Unfortunately, they just weren't given a whole lot of time together. So in answer to that, I think this was a phenomenal hire by the San Francisco 49ers, a much needed hire by the San Francisco 49ers. All right, looking to get back into the comments to catch up with what you all are saying live. Okay, Notorious GAV coming in at Rob Shue. Who was this season's most improved 49er? Was it Al-Shaair or moving Armstead inside of somebody else? I'm only counting players who played all last season. No Bosa or Debo. That makes sense to limit it to players that had a full season each. So it's not comeback player of the year that you're asking for, but most improved. I've got to go with Azeez Al-Shaair. That to me jumps right off of the page. And I'm going to talk about him in a little bit in the 49ers attempting to bring him back. Karthik coming in with a live question at Rob. People say it was Jimmy's fault they lost the game in the fourth quarter. Well, I'm just saying it was Kyle's problem and his faulty decision not putting his best player on the field. It's his part. I will not assign complete blame to anybody. It's a team sport for sure. And it was a lot of plays left on the field. I thought that at the presser, many of the Niners players were very honest about that. The defense left plays on the field. The offense left plays on the field. Jimmy left plays on the field. Kyle left plays on the field. It was, with how close we came to a victory, it was sad with the number of plays that could have turned the tide. All right, Karthik, with a quick question, I think, about the show itself. At Rob, will you do call-ins for everyone in the chat during the offseason? Yes. Great timing on that question, Karthik. I just got a key needed piece to cover up the screen when I bring on people so that it's call-in only and not video, so I can open it up to everybody. It doesn't just need to be members of the channel, sneakerheads, as it had been on previous call-in shows. Yes, I am going to implement a call-in show. I may even do it as soon as this weekend. Throw out some suggestions as to preferred days of the week. I would love to get that going. Robert Pacheco coming in at Rob Shue. Do you think we will trade someone this offseason? And who, if we do? I think it's possible that the 49ers trade someone. The linebacker room potentially gets a little crowded if the 49ers do, in fact, tender Azeez Al-Shaair and re-sign Marcel Harris on the cheap. I think you could see a Dre Greenlaw trade. Other than that, I don't see a whole lot of trades lining up. I mean, you would think fringe players, but most of that will be determined once you know what the 53-man roster starts to look like, and that'll be later in the offseason. Karthik back in at Rob. Imagine Lynn with Mostert. He's going to make the run game a lot more dynamic. Thoughts? I will talk about Mostert in a little bit, but I would love to get him back. To me, it's totally worth it if you can get him back on a team-friendly deal. BK from the Bay at Rob Shue. I've heard that there are several teams interested in Jimmy G. In your opinion, what do you think we can realistically get back in trade? I have not changed my opinion on this one iota from the get-go. I am sticking with a second and a fourth. That's what I believe the Niners get. I'm hearing this first-round chatter. To me, that strikes me as more of a conditional pick, and then the first rounder becomes a first rounder in 2023. And in that case, I think I'd rather have a second rounder in 2022. Sean 9519er sneakerhead here on the channel at Rob Shue. True, Shanny gets tight, but if Matt Ryan doesn't fumble in the Super Bowl and Jimmy G hits Emmanuel Sanders, he has 2 Super Bowl and no consideration of him losing big games. He won 3 big road games. All reasonably true. You could make a case for maybe the Emmanuel Sanders touchdown, even if it was completed, may not have been enough to stem the tide of the Kansas City Chiefs coming back. The defense certainly collapsed at the end of that Super Bowl. And so that actually further supports your point that it doesn't necessarily fall on Coach Shanahan. I do think that it's a narrative more media pundits have run with than is actually true. So I tend to side with you in believing there are other factors in it, but I will not deny that Shanahan does get tight in those moments. Daniel Martinez coming in at Rob Shue. McGlinchey will come back. Niners picked his 5th-year option. New faces already on the roster. Banks, School, Moore. Still, if Laken isn't re-signed, they should get a guard in free agency or draft. Laken Tomlinson is either 1A or 1B in priority free agents for me. It's DJ Jones and Laken Tomlinson as my top 2, and it just depends which side of the ball you're talking about as to which is more important to me. Fazil just coming in to say that I'm his guy. Hey, my man, come on in. We are rocking here. David McNew at Rob Shue. Out of our key free agents, who would you let walk? Ooh, goodness gracious. That's an interesting question. I mean, there are a ton. Honestly, it's like 30 free agents. I was on Ben Meyerson's program earlier, and I jokingly tried to get through half of them in 10 seconds and could barely do it. If you look at key free agents that we may let walk, to me, it's the wide receiver group. We only have 2 players under contract right now, and that is Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Now, Jawan Jennings is a restricted, not a restricted free agent, an exclusive rights free agent. It will be easy as pie to bring Jawan Jennings back, and the Niners will do that. But after that, I think they let everybody walk. I think they let Travis Benjamin walk. You can replace him with a draft pick. I think that potentially they bring Mohamed Sanu back, but they would wait a while to let him get real cheap there. And I'm not even sure that you bring Trent Sherfield back. It depends on the value he brings on special teams. So that could be a surprise in half of the wide receiver room being fresh this coming season. All right, looking to catch up a little bit. Jason PDSI at Rob Shue. Aside from the fact that SI's resident 49er troll beat writer thinks so, do you think there's legit heat between John and Kyle? I don't see any reason to predict legitimate heat between John and Kyle. That's an interesting thing. Sean 9519ers at Rob Shue. Can you explain to me why another team would hire Hightower to run special teams? Like, what the F? How do you get another job doing that? I don't actually. That's a good one. I thought the Niners did him a solid respect move in not letting him go before he got that other position. But it is strange to run the 26th ranked unit, to have struggled for several years to put a good quality core special teams unit on the field, and to get another bite at the apple. You know, I can't honestly speak about Chicago and what their motivation was there. All right, Nova KGG, or maybe Novak GG, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob Shue, keep Mostert or let him go? If he's inexpensive, I keep him. I absolutely would keep him. I just cannot explain how much of a difference Mostert is when healthy on this offense. All right, I need to get to a couple of the previously submitted questions. I will come back to yours in the chat. Keep them coming with at Rob Shue. Okay, let me get back into these. Two are pretty closely related, so I'm going to hit them back to back. First one coming from Amin the Dream. You know he's a favorite here on the channel. Good dude, Amin. And Amin comes in with his question, will Trey Lance have a better season than Joe Burrow next year? I mean, that's a bold swing at the plate. Why? Because we're going to look at what did Joe Burrow do this year. 4,600 yards passing, 34 touchdowns and 14 picks. Threw in there 118 yards rushing, surprisingly low for how mobile Joe Burrow is. But I guess coming off of that gruesome knee injury, maybe not surprising. So my answer to this is stats-wise, no. I do not think that Lance is going to sniff 4,600 yards passing. As I started to look at statistical likely years, which is the next question that's going to come up, a little teaser there, I started to look at early Josh Allen, and I looked at Jimmy G from this year. So 4,600 yard passing, I just don't see it. Combined yardage, he could get a little bit closer to that as a 4,700 yards combined between rushing and passing, but I still don't think he does that. But record-wise, I would say yes. I think that there's a reasonable chance that the Niners have the same or better record than the Cincinnati Bengals do next year. I would say that it's even possible that Trey could have a better statistical year, but really that's only if the Bengals ignore offensive line again this year and proceed to get Joe Burrow killed during next season. I just don't expect a huge statistical year from Lance. I expect a bit of caution to his game. I expect focus on not turning the ball over and taking chances sparingly, much like Fred Warner had to come to him and say, hey, we need you to push the ball downfield in practice. We need the opportunity to try and make plays against someone who's attempting to make plays on us. I see Trey in real games under fire being a bit more of his conservative self in that regard. I'm going to lay out my actual statistical prediction for Lance right now, because that's the question. Jacob came in and said, what is your prediction for Lance's stats next season? So I started to look at Josh Allen and Jimmy G and create a blend of that. So Jimmy G this year, 3,800 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, 51 yards rushing. Josh Allen, over his first 2 years, so first year he only started 12 games, 2,074 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 12 picks, 631 rushing yards. His second year, his first full season, 3,089 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 picks, 510 rushing yards. When I look at the combination of those 2 years from Josh Allen, Jimmy G this year, and what I expect, the talent level of this team, my official prediction, you can put it in the books and you can pull receipts next year when we have this in stone. My Trey prediction for 2022, 3,600 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks, 500 rushing yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns. Yes, I have a combined 38 touchdowns coming from Trey Lance. You can guarantee I will be taking him at the appropriate point in fantasy football drafts with that prediction. That is a lot of points that he is going to put up on the board there. I could be way off. He may have a 4,000 passing yard season in him. I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think he's going to lean on those legs a little bit more early on in his career as he continues to grow. I think he will struggle a little bit in completion percentage, but those deep shots that he takes that Jimmy G just did not will balance out and produce those higher passing yardage totals that I predicted. I'm anxious to see what the reaction to that is in the comments. Getting back into your comments, again, if you've got a question for me, hit the @Rob or @RobShoe. All right, we got the notorious GAV coming in on this one. I'm surprised you didn't say DJ Jones and his barbecue sauce, who was the most improved player. I probably should have. I should have thrown DJ Jones up on the screen there, but I don't think he was that much improved. I think he has been that player. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy through the latter part of the season. I thought he had contributed on those 2020 and 2019 squads as well, but it certainly was him anchoring the line. I view him as a top 1 or 2 priority in free agency. On Ben Meyerson's program that I was just doing earlier today, I said he was my top 1 priority, and I think I'm sticking with that. That Niner guy, sneakerhead on the channel, @RobShoe. Going to be honest, the more I look at it, the less I am convinced the Niners are not going to be spenders in free agency, even if they don't get their own guys back. There's a double negative in there that makes it difficult for me to say whether you think they're going to be big spenders or not be big spenders. I'm interpreting it to mean that you don't think they're going to be big spenders. If that's the case, you and I are in agreement. The salary cap is tight for the 49ers. I don't think they can afford very many premier free agents. I think their target will be to bring back as many of their own key free agents as possible and then look for value. Look for a lot of value signings by the San Francisco 49ers. Look for some of the defensive line guys that want to come in and play for Chris Kosaric so that they can get what Arden Key got this year in that bump. But the focus has to be bringing back their own guys. Matthew W., also a sneakerhead on the channel, at Rob, let's say we get a second for Jimmy. Do we package both of our seconds to move into the first round for a cornerback? I don't think, first of all, could the 49ers package 2 2s to get back into the first? Yes. I do not think they would use that on a cornerback. I don't know that that strategy changes for the San Francisco 49ers. They are rush first, cover second. So they don't spend premier draft picks or premier free agency money on secondary pieces, especially on the outside, right, to bring in cornerbacks. So, yes, I could see them trading back into the first round. I don't think it would be for a cornerback. The faithful may be calling for that, but I just don't see the 49ers investing that heavily. All right, I am going to find and catch up in these current comments. Raphael562 at Rob, do you think Charles Omenihu going to be an impact player next season? I think he will be a role player, a key depth piece for the San Francisco 49ers. Going to find another question. All right, Karthik coming in at Rob. Most people want a speedy receiver to go down the field and catch deep shots from Trey, 50-plus yards. But we already have insanely fast receivers and a good core and depth with that, too. I've got to disagree there, Karthik. We have 2 wide receivers signed, Debo and Brandon Ayuk, and neither one is an absolute burner. We have Travis Benjamin is a free agent, but he is over that 30 mark. And honestly, I just think you can replace him on the cheap. I do think that they go later in the draft, 6th or 7th round. We have a 6th rounder that we got in trade for a linebacker, Jonas Griffith from the Denver Broncos. And then we have 3 compensatory 7th rounders. I could see any of those 3 compensatory 7th rounders being spent on a return man, a gunner, special teams core guy, and that could include a speedy wide receiver. Karthik says, at Rob, I think Lakin's actually underrated in my opinion. I agree he's got to be a priority. Oh, this is a good one. Zarpama coming in at Rob. Who do you like as backup quarterback? Sudfeld? No. If we go into the season with Nate Sudfeld as a backup quarterback, to me that just sends a message that we were extremely cash strapped and could not afford to bring in the appropriate backup. Ideally, my ideal candidate is Tyrod Taylor. I do agree that he may be a little expensive to bring in, but I think the Niners probably need to invest in that $8 to $10 million range for a base salary for a highly qualified backup. It's just the going rate if you want to bring someone in who is a capable backup and not just a journeyman or someone that's not going to win you any games. The Niners could go cheap. They could go bring back Nick Mullins. They could roll with Nick Mullins and Nate Sudfeld on the roster and let them compete for the backup spot. That wouldn't give me a solid sense of being able to win a game without Trey Lance. I think you want a backup that can win you a couple of games. George coming in at Rob Shue. Whatever happened to Richie James Jr.? I think I saw him in preseason and never heard of another word about him. He got injured in preseason, was released with an injury settlement, but then was never claimed by another team. And so what happens in that case is he then reverted to the San Francisco 49ers roster. So he is a free agent, but he is listed as last having played for the San Francisco 49ers. They still can negotiate with him right now before that legal tampering period opens March 14th. So he is technically still within the organization. Ellis 10, another sneakerhead on the channel, at Rob Shue. Who are your top 5 must-keep core players coming due for a new contract? All right, so I'm interpreting that to mean actual free agents, not like extensions, Debo and Bosa, because those would be two of them if we're talking extensions. But LS10, I'm interpreting that to mean free agents. I'll give you my 5. Laken Tomlinson, DJ Jones, Arden Key, Jordan Willis, and Raheem Mostert. Those are my 5. If we get those 5 back, that's a solid offseason in my book. I wouldn't need anything else to happen, and I would be elated if we bring those guys back. Randall Riley, another sneakerhead on the channel. At Rob, what's your feeling or opinion on using starters on special teams, assuming injuries aren't in the equation? I'm not a huge fan of it. I think the 49ers need to invest more in their special teams. They need to use those late round picks on core special teamers. The reason the New England Patriots are so good year after year with regard to their special teams, yes, Joe Judge was a good special teams coach, and they invested in bringing in solid gunners, coverage guys, return guys, speed guys, linebackers that play on that unit. You have to invest in special teams, and the Niners have ignored it. Harbaugh understood that you only need to win 2 out of the 3 phases, and sometimes special teams can be one of those. Texas Niner, another sneakerhead on the channel. At Rob, I think Trey will shock the world next year. Texas Niner, I'm fired up by that statement. Cheers to Trey Lance potentially shocking the world. Maybe he does throw for 4,600 yards. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be spectacular? That Niner guy, Rob, that's a lot of touchdowns. That would be a lot of touchdowns for Trey Lance. It would. Sean9519 saying, Rob, shoot, brother, if those stats hold true, we're in the Super Bowl 2022 in Vegas. And if we are, damn sure this guy's going to be there. It is true. All right. Going down, George is back in. At Rob Shue, I saw someone ask Grant to turn down the intro music, and my girlfriend asked me to tell you the same thing. Sometimes we fall asleep and wake up to your intro. LOL. Love the channel. Anyways, that is good to know. I didn't know the difference between the intro music and the other. I can turn that down. I will work to do so. I think I can turn that down. I'm not entirely convinced that I can turn that down, but I'm going to work on that. Because that would be weak to wake up to that. But I'm glad that my voice can put you to sleep. Karthik coming in. At Rob, the most generous picks for Jimmy, in my opinion, is a 2nd and a 4th. And I'm up for it. Hey, that's my prediction. So I would definitely be good with it. Ooh, here we go. Notorious GAV. At Rob Shue, do you think it's worth bringing Trenton Cannon back? I don't think so. I mean, he was out after that horrible hit against the Seattle Seahawks. But then was back onto the roster, but never made another appearance. And so I don't know if the injury was more severe than they're letting on, or if he just got beat out on the roster. But for how bad that unit was and his inability to get back on the field, I'm hesitant to say that we should bring him back. That would seem like a value signing toward the end of the offseason, if anything. Sac Francisco coming in. At Rob, I'm excited to see the job Anthony Lynn will do behind the departures of Embry and McDaniel. Keep up the good work. Appreciate that. I am very excited for that as well. Neil coming in with the super chat. So excited for Trey. I sense an MVP season real soon. I'm excited for Trey as well. I mean, quite honestly, I was hoping that we would work him into the game plans throughout the second half of this season. With the way the season turned out, I'm not terribly upset that it didn't turn out that way. Clearly, Coach Shanahan felt that he couldn't work both quarterbacks in successfully while calling plays in the way that he wants to. So I'm okay with it. But yes, very excited to see what Trey can do. Go back and watch the highlight tapes. That's where you want to see for his ceiling. It's spectacular. The highlight frickin' tapes jump off of the page. They jump off the page. Rick coming in. At Rob, do you think the Niners are being aggressive enough regarding acquiring coaches? Seems like they have already missed on some good ones so far. I was disappointed that they are missing out on the special teams coaches. I have to wait and see who they end up hiring there. I did think it would have been a quality hire to bring Joe Judge in as a special teams coordinator because of what he was able to do in New England. But now he has been signed as well. And the Raiders interim coach drew a lot of interest from 49er faithful. but he also has been hired already. So, most of the candidates linked to the 49ers have been scooped up. I did see on Niner Noise them putting out the assistant special teams coach for Seattle. And you know what they were able to do to us on special teams. That would be an interesting one. Steal someone from a rival. I like that move. Sean9519ers at Rob Shue. You said only 2 wide receivers signed. What about Jawan Jennings? He is an exclusive rights free agent. Almost guaranteed that the Niners extend that minimum offer that keeps him there at the cheapest possible way for 1 more year. We have 5 exclusive rights free agents. Jawan Jennings, Colton McKivitz, JaMychal Hasty, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, and Kevin Givens. I would be willing to wager a fair amount of money all 5 are tendered, or whatever they call that. All 5 are brought back, that they are offered that minimum deal because they can't go out and negotiate with any other teams. Chris Tucker coming in just to say howdy. That's a buddy of mine, so I got to put him on the screen. Anybody looking for real estate in the Texas area? Hit up my man, Chris Tucker. Sac Francisco at Rob. Have you done any homework on any 2022 draft prospects? Keep an eye out for wide receiver Calvin Austin from Memphis. I will keep an eye out for that. I am just about to get into some topics talking about positions, not specific players, but positions that we may be interested in. So stick with me for just a minute. I am going to hit this super chat and then get into the topic. I see my buddy talking some trash. I'm going to have to get after him. All right, here we go with the super chat. Lucane. I'm going Lucane. Tell me if I'm incorrect there. Rob, you awesome human. How many touchdowns do you think Trey is throwing next year? More than 20? Jimmy G this year. Yes, I have him throwing 30. I think it may be crazy. It may be crazy, but yes, I have him coming through and throwing 30 touchdowns. So come back and keep that receipt. Let me know just how crazy I am. But this offense with Trey Lance behind it, I just get excited. By it. No question in my mind. All right, going into the previously submitted questions here. Not the prediction on Trey Lance. We got the prediction on Trey Lance. Here we go. Talking about offensive coordinators. Greg coming in with this question. Much is made of Alex Smith going through several offensive coordinators. How much does our offense change with Mike McDaniel's departure? It's known as Kyle's offense, but we are still changing offensive coordinators. Thank you for the question, Greg. To me, this offense changes very little. There should be new wrinkles to the run game, but let's be very honest. Kyle Shanahan runs the show, and it will be very similar based on that fact. Go back and listen to Mike McDaniel talk about Kyle Shanahan and his importance in play design and play calling, and why Mike McDaniel would never even dream to ask for play calling duties underneath Kyle Shanahan because of the way in which he operates the offense. It seemed like he was deferring to Kyle Shanahan in that regard. And I think that is the reality, that he will defer to Kyle Shanahan, and Anthony Lynn will defer to Kyle Shanahan in that regard. I think Kyle Shanahan is a control freak, and therefore his control will be all over the offense. I do look for some tempo changes that I mentioned earlier, and a new scheme that builds around a mobile quarterback. But that was going to happen no matter what. That was going to be a vast difference even if McDaniel had stayed, because the offense needed to evolve for Trey. Kyle Shanahan said as much and said that was what created the obstacles of bringing Trey in rotation with Jimmy G, because you needed an offense tailored to the skill set of Trey Lance. Since Lance didn't actually play very much this year, the interesting piece of that is the wrinkles should have a lesser impact on him than if he'd played the entire year. If he had played the entire year in that system, he would be more used to it. He would be unlearning things. But this is all still just learning versus relearning new stuff or unlearning old stuff. So I don't think it will set back Trey Lance at all. I think that the common thread of Kyle Shanahan will be the key. This one comes in from the notorious GAV, Gavin from across the pond in Wales. Gavin says, I'll be tuning in tonight, Rob. And he did. He's there in the comments. If we bring back Mostert next year, does he get the captaincy role ahead of Kyle Juszczyk? Now, it must be said, for those that do not know Gavin, he is a huge Juice fan. He is all about Kyle Juszczyk. He's a Juszczyk nut, all about the juice. So it makes sense that he would have this question about whether Mostert could take that captain role. My answer is I don't think so. Another Pro Bowl for Juice this year, some added respect, a vocal leader in the locker room. You know, he was the guy that came up to Jimmy Garoppolo and really told him the sentiment of, hey, this is our last ride together. Jimmy shared that fact after the Week 18 game. I think there's a greater chance that Juice would have that captaincy because Mostert, he's very well liked, very well respected, but you just have to wonder, if he's on a one-year deal and he's coming back, does a team still see him as a figurehead to this offense? Or is it more of a temporary relationship and it's seen that way? It may be, and this is just throwing it out there, but it may be more interesting to see if Elijah Mitchell gets a captain spot. With how much they relied on him, with how much they used him in his rookie year, he may step into the spotlight for year two. Depends on how they fill out the rest of that room, but I got my eyes on Elijah Mitchell. Next question. Any draft prospects we should look out for in the upcoming draft? Center, corner, guard should be the main focus, right? Mark BB coming in with the question. I agree to some extent with those positions that you list. Let me first say that I haven't gotten into serious draft prep on individual players. I'm still evaluating needs as the Niners look to re-sign their own while headed into free agency. But I can say what my top needs are for the team. My top 5 positions. Number 1 for me is replacing D Ford. I still believe that edge rusher, a speed guy, a bookend to Bosa, not the platoon style that they've been doing, but the D Ford type. That was the 2019 key. That was what unlocked the pass rush efficiency from that 2019 defense. And it is that level of efficiency that the Niners need to cover up the deficiency they have on the outside in failing to really put any assets, any considerable assets, into acquiring outside corners, right? They went value in bringing Jason Verrett in on the one-year deal, and then he got injured. And they went value in drafting a highly qualified, but a player who had been out of college for a year in Ambry Thomas. They were able to get him in the 3rd round because of the fact that he sat out 2020. But that also meant that he sat out the first half of this season as he reacclimated himself to football. To me, that edge rusher piece eliminates the fear of the outside corners, and it covers up any deficiencies outside. But I do think that the 49ers have to invest in corner this year. That's my second need. I think they will deprioritize it. They need both an outside corner and a nickel corner potentially. Now, they could do that through re-signing some of their own, but if not, I would look for 3rd round of the draft or later for addressing it. I would look for middle of the road free agents, some veteran savvy. I would prefer to bring in one middle of the road savvy veteran corner as opposed to drafting another young one. I would rather spend that $7, maybe $8 million a year to get a quality cornerback in free agency. It'll be interesting to see how the Niners approach it. And then I would go interior offensive line. That would be my 3rd one. Future center, but current guard depth. I'm predicting that Mack is back for this year, but you could bring in someone who's going to be the center in 2023 and have them play right guard in 2022. I'm banking on the Niners bringing back Laken Tomlinson. I think you need safety depth. I don't know that the Niners are going to bring back Jaquiski Tart unless he comes back on the cheap. Without him, Tavarius Moore, also, I think he's a free agent. He may still be I need to dig into that. But that would be the most obvious replacement on the roster if he's still around. Talanoa Hufanga certainly is capable of it, but a little bit slower than what you would get if you're able to bring back Jaquiski Tartt. I think the Niners address that in the draft. And then speed receiver, return guy, gunner. Again, things that I think can be had on the cheap. Fill out the back half of that roster with players that can contribute on special freaking teams. That's how you raise that unit up. All right, getting back into the comments to bring in your thoughts as well. Luke Kane saying I pronounced it correctly. I like that. All right, Matthew W. with the question here. At Rob, how many design quarterback runs, quarterback options do you want to see per game for Lance next year? That's tough. I don't want to see Lance getting injured in the way that he did against Arizona. That could happen no matter what. I think that Lance needs to do a better job of learning how to get down, learning how to slide, and that's on him. But I would say for me, you want to keep the designed runs to 5 or fewer in any given game. Like a game plan shouldn't really be to force Trey Lance down their throats. It's much cleaner to me if he takes what the defense gives him, but is primarily a pocket passer. That Niner guy is saying, at Rob Shue, I didn't know your buddy's with a movie star. Your buddy was sick in Rush Hour. Yes, that is not the Chris Tucker, unfortunately, that I know. But, I do know, who did I know? James, now I can't even, James Franco. James Franco. I did go to school with a movie star. Jason coming in at Rob. I get their buds, but when I saw Kittle signing autographs at the Pro Bowl with a Jimmy G mask on, maybe he can't accept Trey as the new quarterback. How should Trey feel after seeing that? I don't think Trey should feel any way other than recognizing that George Kittle was good friends with Jimmy G. And I think he's showing respect in that regard. I don't think it was a slight on Trey. I anticipate Trey and Kittle getting close quickly. DL Coleman at Rob, do you think the offensive line is more of a concern than secondary because of Mack, Tomlinson could be gone, and right side is already bad, not looking good? I do think that offensive line is potentially a bigger need than secondary if the Niners do not re-sign Tomlinson and Mack doesn't come back. If Tomlinson is re-signed and Alex Mack decides to come back for another year, that to me solidifies from left to center. And then Mike McGlinchey, I just trust that he's going to come back from that injury. I know a lot of 49er fans are not wild about his level of performance. I'm not in that camp. I feel that he is a better option than what we had in Tom Compton, and that his run blocking makes up for some of his shortcomings in the pass blocking scheme. I think he's a suitable right tackle. Maybe not worth the draft capital that was invested to get him. Maybe not the level of performance that I would have liked to see, but suitable. And then you have Aaron Banks, and I'm not willing to say that he's not going to add value for the Niners in this upcoming season. So to me, there's one position needed, and it is the backup center that can also then be the backup guard or competing for that right guard spot this season. To me, you can fill the puzzle with one piece along that offensive line, where it may be two for the defensive backs, both outside and nickel corner as well. Daniel Martinez coming in here. At Rob Shue, Mostert was named a captain this season. Thing is, he got injured, as we all know. By the way, I don't think Mostert will come back. I'm not so sure he will either. I think after the negativity that he got from the fan base that his wife experienced, that he may not have quite the same soft spot for San Francisco. And there could be an opening in Miami with Mike McDaniel. And I think he's going to hold out for whatever gives him the most money. Because let's be honest, he has not earned a whole hell of a lot compared to, other players on the 49ers. He may still feel he needs to maximize his earning potential. Ellis 10, at Rob Shue, I understand the Niners have not drafted or free agents. However, do you have that 49ers winning plus or minus 10 games in 2022? I see wins New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Washington, Chicago, Denver, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Carolina, and half of the NFC West. So you've got 11 wins there, Ellis. That's off the cuff. That's about where I would put the Niners as well. I do think if I'm taking the over or under, if it's set at 10, I'm taking the over. I think the Niners hit 11 wins next year. Feels good to say that, doesn't it? Back in the playoffs, yet again. Dylan coming in at Rob. Do you think San Francisco goes after secondary and free agency and offensive line in the draft, or the other way around? I think in free agency, we go after our own offensive line. So I think we go after Lake and Tomlinson. I do think that we go after secondary in free agency and then address offensive line in the draft. So yes, I think that San Francisco goes after secondary in free agency with a veteran corner and then offensive line earlier than secondary in the draft. But I also won't be surprised by taking several defensive backs in the draft as well. Because we may be down a nickel corner with K'Wan Williams out, Dante Johnson out. Diamador Lenore was not favored toward the end of the year, so you would think they would want camp competition for him. You could see them bringing in either a savvy veteran or someone during the draft. And then on the outside, you need depth behind Mosley and Ambry Thomas. Dylan says, at Rob, we also need a backup center to learn from Mac for a year. So 2023, we got to develop center. I wholeheartedly agree with this, Dylan. That should be a top priority for the San Francisco 49ers, investing one of their second or third round picks. I believe they're going to have 2 seconds and 2/3. They already have the 2/3 because they got the second, third rounder as a compensatory pick for Mike McDaniel being a minority candidate and getting a head coaching career. I would anticipate of those 4 picks, one of them will be on the backup center. Dustin Kohler, one of my buddies, coming in at Rob Shue. Speaking of the draft in Vegas, what buffet are we hitting? I mean, I think there have to be multiple buffets thrown out. You cannot go to Vegas without hitting the buffet at Caesars. If you have not been to the buffet at Caesars, hold on to your freaking hat. It is epic. I mean, they've got everything. Everything. You got to have good king crab legs if you're going to call yourself a legit dinner buffet in Vegas. And the other place that has that's pretty damn good is Wynn. So those, I think, are my top 2 favorites, Caesars and Wynn for the buffet. And then there's just a whole plethora of wonderful restaurants to hit in Las Vegas. Dustin, we have a lot of planning to do around that journey. And anybody that's going to be there in Vegas, you let me know. And we'll let you know when Dustin and Mark and I are hitting the buffet. We'll throw it out on Twitter, and people can come join us for a meal and talk Niners or Detroit Lions if you want to talk to Dustin about it. George coming in. At Rob Shue, one day you should do a video on your life story or a quick little upbringing. I feel like it'd be cool getting to know more about you. I'm sure the subs would enjoy it. George, that's a great idea. I would like to incorporate more of me into the channel. I try to bring in a little bit about me, a little bit about who I am, and bring in tidbits as I can. But that would be an interesting one. Perhaps I will bring someone on that wants to do an interview piece, and they can interview me and ask me questions. And that could create sort of a fun episode. I've got someone in mind that might be able to do that interview. All right, Daniel Martinez. Again, if you want to ask one directly at me, I see some of these questions coming in without the @Rob or @Rob Shue. Just let me know. Hit the @Rob in the comments so I know you're talking to me. Daniel is talking to me. @Rob Shue. Any rumors on who can the Niners sign as a tight ends coach? I think Brent Jones has never been into coaching, but wouldn't he be amazing to keep Kittle fired up just in case Kittle feels Jimmy G-less? Daniel, I love the idea of bringing in an ex-Niner great to do it. I had a question in here that I'm going to get to in just a little bit around Tom Rathman. And what if we lost Bobby Turner? Would Tom Rathman be a good fill-in? I am always all about bringing back in Niner greats. I think without the experience there, without the ties to Kyle Shanahan, I would be a little bit surprised if Brent Jones were brought in. But let me give that one more thought. The special teams coach and the tight ends coach are 2 as yet to be determined things that need to be filled out for the San Francisco 49ers. And a lot of those coaches that I would have talked about bringing in may have already been signed. Pretty much all of them have been. Sorry, I got distracted by Rob Smith coming in with a great question here. Hi, Rob. Best steakhouse in Vegas. This one's tough. I think the one in Wynn is called Southwest Steakhouse. That one is very good, as is the one, Dustin can attest to this because he has eaten there with me at my bachelor party, at the one in the MGM. God, the name of it is escaping me. But if you look up MGM Steakhouse, I will tell you my favorite restaurant in Las Vegas is Joel Robuchon. You have to spend a ridiculous amount of money to eat there. I mean, I'm talking about a pre-fee, a fixed price menu that's like $700-800 a pop, and that doesn't include alcohol. That is just an 18-course tasting menu. But my God, is it phenomenal. And their mashed potatoes are a thing of beauty. They are the lightest, fluffiest, butteriest mashed potatoes you have ever tasted in your life. I swear to God, they are 50% butter and 50% potato. If you ever have a chance to get someone else to pay for your meal at Joel Robuchon, you take them up on that. You take them up on that and you go eat that grub because it is phenomenal. All right, Jason coming in with this one. At Rob, when Shanahan took over, they released Cap because they said he didn't fit their offensive scheme. If he would accept backup pay, should they bring him in for Lance or maybe go after Tyrod, RG3? I love Tyrod Taylor. To me, Tyrod Taylor is the target to bring in. I would love to see Cap get a chance. I am a bit wary now that he's been out of the league for so long. I think he deserves a chance to get back in the league. And I think that I'd be thrilled if he could get back with the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't care about any distractions or anything of that nature. But I do wonder, it's fair to wonder how much he can contribute after being out of the league for so long. I just don't know the answer to that. And without knowing the answer to that, I can't give an informed opinion. I would love him to get the tryout. I don't see it as likely. I love Tyrod Taylor. RG3, I'm not so sold on. He didn't look so spectacular to me. And in that book that either has come out or snippets have come out of it, it doesn't seem like he's very fond of the Shanahan family. Jaguayo 56. Hi, Rob. If Tart leaves, should we target Justin Reed? Should we give up on Banks? Maybe Honey Badger. Justin Reed and Honey Badger would be fascinating players to pursue if we let go of Tart. I would assume that we couldn't, if we can't afford Tart, we can't afford the Honey Badger. I'm not sure what Justin Reed would go for, but solid player there. I'd be happy to bring him in. Far too early, in my humble opinion, to give up on Aaron Banks. Far too early to give up on him. The man barely had any playing time. We got to let him get on the field. Jaguayo 56 coming in with the super chat. Got to get to that. At Rob Shue, after I hear your show, I always feel positive. Thanks for your amazing insight and transparency. I appreciate that. Oh man, I got to mute somebody. If you just got put in a timeout, I hope you know why. That was not for Jaguayo. I'm talking to Jaguayo, but I was looking at a comment that needed to get timeouted. Thank you for that. I try to be true to myself, and in who I want to portray to others, that is positivity, because I am a firm believer that kindness is magic, and that kindness toward other people, respect toward other people, positivity out toward the world will bring those things back to you. If you want to receive kindness, if you want to receive positivity, if you want to get those things back in your life, to me, the way in which you go about that is you put them out to others. It is sort of like karma in that I believe when you put out a certain energy, you're more likely to get that energy back. So I appreciate when people notice that. And I appreciate Jaguayo. I appreciate you taking the time and money to come in and say that. That means a great deal. Thank you. Bringing in Rob Smith. No, I got to that. Best steakhouse in Vegas. Yes, indeed. K. Quinn coming in. Hello, Shu. Hello, K. Quinn. That Niner guy. At Rob Shu. If the Niners spend a bit on receiver, my vote is Isaiah McKenzie, burner and return man. Rob, have some draft guys to watch. Okay, that Niner guy, let's connect offline because we've been talking about this. We need to connect this week. We'll make that happen because that Niner guy is filling me in on draft prospects. So that is key information. We got to have that. What I agree is the sentiment here. The Niners should spend some assets, whether it's free agency dollars or draft assets, to acquire a burner and return man. And what better way to do it than both in one? Two birds, one stone. So I'm on board. I can't speak specifically to Isaiah McKenzie as a fit within the organization, but I can speak to the idea of bringing in someone to address both of those roles. Antonio Ponce asking, at Rob, should we go after Kyle Fuller or Casey Hayward? I could see potentially going after, again, I think the Niners are going to be prudent in their spending. I do think they will pursue a veteran corner. I think they will be cash strapped, and a lot of that will be dependent on what they do prior to the start of that legal tampering period. Prepare to see some Niner re-signs, as they are the only ones who can currently deal with their free agents upcoming. Bruce R. at Rob Shoe, Saquon Barkley for the 4th round. I can't get on board with a Saquon Barkley trade because the Niners are too cash strapped. I don't think they have the luxury of bringing in a running back that gets paid at the level of Saquon Barkley, even with his talent. And I think they've shown a propensity for being able to fill out that running back room with inexpensive players by finding value in the draft because of that resource they have in Bobby Turner. All about Bobby Turner. He's my hero. He is my hero. Ryan Sapp at Rob Shoe with a strong finish. Does it make sense to try to extend wide receiver Jennings for 2 to 3 years instead of just a restricted free agent? Yes, Ryan, I agree with this. I do think that there is merit to that. I would say that I would try to extend Jennings now before he takes another next step. It'll be interesting to see what his camp would want for that. Daniel Martinez saying, at Rob Shoe, the Bobby Turner Rathman is also my question. I posted it on your Twitter timeline. Daniel, you are coming in just a minute. Let me get back to some of these questions so that I can get to that question that Daniel Martinez is referring to, because it is in the list. It is there, and I won't skip it. I promise, Daniel. I promise. Here we go. Getting into the previously submitted questions. This one's going to be about Azeez Al-Shaair. Do you think Azeez Al-Shaair will be here next season? I like the fact that you travel to the games you come across as a diehard Niner fan, not a YouTube presenter, sports journalist. Respect. Daryl, first of all, I had to leave in that second part to it because it's a nod to me, and I love nods to me. So yes, thank you for that. I am. There's no getting past it. No matter how serious this channel gets, no matter how much of a sports journalist I become, I will be a Niner diehard, Niner faithful above and beyond everything else. It's true to my core. It is true to who I grew up being. It is true to my emotions. It is true to my passion. And I have to stay true to me in that regard. So yes, you will see me in the stands cheering like an idiot. And not in the press box. I used to cover NCAA basketball for the University of the Pacific when I went to school there. And I used to sit at the scoring table as a member of the press and take my notes there. And I couldn't not cheer. And I was forcibly asked to leave the scoring table because I could not bite my tongue. And I went and sat with the fans and I took my notes from there. And I still did my job as a journalist, but I was both a fan and a journalist. I hope that's what makes me a little unique in that regard. But to your first question about Azeez, I do think that the Niners bring Azeez back. It should be relatively easy. He's a restricted free agent, so the Niners will get to place a value on him. Now, the options are first round tender, second round tender, original round tender, but to the original round tender, the third option, he was an unrestricted free agent coming out of college. So that one basically gets wiped off of the map. Really, there are options that you should consider because they're not going to put a first round tender on Azeez. They would have to pay him a ridiculous amount in order to do that. They will most likely either do a second round tender, which seems a little bit high for me, or they will do the the first right of refusal tender. That, I think, is the most likely for the 49ers. Let me give you the numbers on that. First, let's start with average salary for a linebacker in the NFL. $1.8 million. So just keep that in mind as I give you the rest of these figures here. The offer that the Niners could give him, if it's a second round tender, is tough. The salary is $3.384 million. So that average of 1.8, that's well above that. That's almost double the average. It would be a 1-year deal at $3.3 million. But it would mean that a team would need to give up a second rounder in order to take Azeez. I don't think that's quite that likely. My guess is it's going to be right of first refusal tender. That comes in at $2.133 million for the year, so just above an average salary for a linebacker. And then the Niners would have the option to match any team's offer that comes in. But if they didn't match it, they do not get any draft compensation back for him. I'm not sure that there'll be a wild market for Azeez. I could be wrong about that. The Niners may place that second round tender on him. I think it is going to be, as I just said, the right of first refusal tender, as it is labeled. All right, now we're getting to the question that people wanted to know about Bobby Turner. If Bobby Turner leaves or retires, would the Niners go after Tom Rathman again? I think he did an excellent job when he was our running backs coach, and that was from Daniel. Daniel, thank you for the previously submitted question. Thank you for being in the chat as well. I loved Rathman. Rathman came to my elementary school the first year I moved to California. Came to California in the middle of third grade. Someone asked for a little backstory. Here's a little gem that I'm throwing in there. We moved from Massachusetts out to Palo Alto, California in 1985, 86, whatever it was. It was the middle of my third grade year. Came in the middle. Like, that was weird as a kid, right? It was winter break, and then you show up and there's a new kid who just moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. Anyway, Walter Hayes Elementary School was the school that I proudly attended in Palo Alto, California. And that first year, 2 Niner players came in. I can't remember who the second one was, but I had the little pictures they gave out that day for the longest time. But Tom Rathman was one of them, and I got to meet him in person, and I had an immediate impression of him after that. I loved him as a coach for the 49ers. I loved how Frank Gore talked him up. He was a great fit with Harbaugh. But do I see him coming back? I don't think so. And here's why. Rathman was hired after Shanahan comes into town. Rathman was hired as a running backs coach for the Indianapolis Colts in February of 2018. But as of last year, January 28th, 2021, he announced his retirement there. So I think he's done. But he does still live in the Bay in Redwood Shores, right there on the peninsula, on the interior on the Bay, the Baylands, with his family. So you're telling me there's a chance. There's definitely a chance. I'm guessing that with the assistant head coach role, Anthony Lynn could kind of fill in for now if Bobby didn't come back, but they need to be planning on this right now. And given Shanahan's propensity to promote from within, I wouldn't be surprised if it was someone that was already on the roster. I wouldn't be surprised if it was someone that was on the defensive side of the ball. Shanahan likes to bring coaches over, start them at the defensive side so that they understand what defenses are schematically attempting to do, and then bring them to the offensive side so that they can bring what they learn from defense and apply it to the offense. And in that way, do what Shanahan does so good, which is attack the weaknesses of defenses. We've got restaurant recommendations in Vegas coming in. Look at this. Ryan saying Sushi Roku, great spot. I think I've been there, and if it's a spot I'm thinking of, very, very good. There used to be a dope sushi spot in the MGM Grand that unfortunately seemed to get swallowed up. That's some of the problems in Vegas is turnover. Yardbird is one of my favorites in Vegas. It's not unique to Vegas, but it's got some dope fried chicken, some great side dishes. If you want a filling, stick to your ribs meal in Vegas that's not crazy expensive, Yardbird is a good one as well. Caligula coming in at Rob. Not sure Scangarello is the right quarterback coach to develop the strengths of Trey Lance. Any thoughts? I agree in your skepticism there. Caligula, sneakerhead of the channel. I'm not convinced it's Rich Scangarello either. but honestly, I don't have suggestions on who it should be. Let me dig into that one and get a better answer because I think that's a great question. Chris Hill at Rob Shue, who do you think will be Trey Lance's backup next season? I don't think it will be Tyrod Taylor. That's my hope. I do think he may hold out for a position where he's at least got a chance to be a starter, but he seemed to have a real affinity for Anthony Lynn. I'm sticking with it. I think the 49ers are able to get a deal done with Tyrod Taylor because he has earned enough as a backup over his career that he may choose a few million less in a single year to be in an enviable position, one that he covets, and he may covet that backup role with San Francisco. William Bennett, another sneakerhead on the channel and frequent call-in member for the video call-in show of Sneakerheads at Rob Shue. Hey, Rob, my guy, but we need a quarterback coach, and Kyle needs help learning how to close out games. I think the Anthony Lynn hire, to me, is potential assistance in closing out games. I agree with this sentiment and Chris Hill's question of, not Chris Hill, Caligula, around the idea of potentially wanting to replace Rich Scangarello. I wasn't thrilled with that hire, and quite honestly, I'm not sure. Rob Smith coming in. Thanks, Rob. I'll be in Vegas in September for my 50th. I'll definitely check it out. Hit me up if you want. I used to go to Vegas for business quite a bit. We had trainings that we would host there. I worked for a company that had their call centers in Vegas, and we would be there for weeks at a time. And I ate at a lot of restaurants along the Strip. We would always stay at an MGM property. One of my favorites would be Aria. They have some good restaurants there as well. Hit me up offline if you want any number of restaurant reservations. All right, looking for more of those comments. Man, I'm behind. I got to catch up. That Niner guy, at Rob Shue, I'm pretty sure RG3 and the Shannies do not send Christmas cards to each other, let alone give him a job. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Agree with Nick from the Mo, too, that Rob is a legend. I mean, not me. Rob in the comments. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about me. I'm kidding. That Niner guy, at Rob Shue, I'm pretty sure RG3. Oh, yep, nope. Christmas cards. Got it. All right, I'm going to try and catch up a little bit. Got to get forward in the comments and hit those at Rob Shue's. Bryant Culp in the building. At Rob, we need to get a player who can kick off unless Debo can do it. I agree. Invest in a return man. Don't have Debo Samuel back there. That was great in the playoffs when every possession mattered. Going forward, let's make sure we have an acceptable return man. Let's two birds with one stone it and get a speedy wide receiver / return man. I love that suggestion earlier. George coming in. At Rob, your channel makes the rough days a little easier. Thank you for the positive content. Means a lot, my man. You help a lot of people out without even knowing it. I appreciate that, George. And each time someone takes the time to come in and say something like that makes me take it to heart just a little bit more. And quite honestly, that means a great deal to me. I hope I do have an impact on people. I hope that my positivity and kindness comes across as genuine, because that's how I mean it. And my hope is to create connections and a dialogue amongst the faithful. I feel like I've been doing that. Swan Song coming in. At Rob Shue, Morgan Moses, undrafted free agent at right tackle. Trade McGlinchey, higher PFF grade as well, and maybe cheaper. Certainly getting cheaper would be good. I have to wonder how the Niners would really manage a trade for Mike McGlinchey coming off of the major surgery for a quad tear and the guaranteed fifth-year option. I think it's most likely that McGlinchey plays out that fifth-year option for us. That would be my guess. Pete coming in. At Rob, is Anthony Lynn going to be the offensive coordinator, or are the Niners looking for someone else? I think we go back in time here, and the Niners don't have an offensive coordinator this year. I think it would be strange to bring in Anthony Lynn as they did, give him the assistant head coach title, and then hit him with the offensive coordinator role as well. I also think it would be weird to have him come in as the assistant head coach and then promote Bobby Slowick to the offensive coordinator. I think this goes back in time a bit to when we had LaFleur and McDaniel as sort of those co-owners of that role, and neither one of them had the title. It was, in effect, Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator, and they were both assistants to Kyle Shanahan. That is my prediction this year as well. Chris Hill, at Rob Shue, do you think Trey Sermon will get more playing time next season? I have to hope so. It is wild to me that he got so little playing time this season. For a running back, that's rare. Running backs can usually come in and contribute right away. It is worrisome that he didn't. But there was a lot of people alluding to that fit of Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Trey Lance, all sort of being a package. So I'm going to hold out optimism that that's the case, that Trey Sermon gets more playing time because Trey Lance is a quarterback next year, and he's got a year to acclimate to the system. It would be a big bust, admittedly, if Trey Sermon turns out not to be a value pick for the Niners, with having traded up to get him. Ellis 10 doing the work of the people, asking you to hit the like button. It does remind me that, hey, in this offseason, it is critically important to my success. If you value the channel, please do consider when you come in, if you enjoy the content, and I say that seriously, if you enjoy the content, please consider hitting that like button. It amplifies my message. It then puts the video out into the algorithm and suggests it to people that may not have seen me. And that gives them the opportunity to see this positivity, to get in on this dialogue, to then subscribe to the channel. If you don't subscribe, it's free. All you got to do is hit subscribe. And then if you want to further support the channel, like many of our sneakerheads like LS10, you can join the channel and actually become a part of the movement, helping to shape this thing, helping it to grow. I appreciate all of you, even if you're just watching and refuse to hit the like button because you think that will install a tracking device on your phone. Newsflash, your phone is a tracking device already. I don't know why I got into that. I just thought it was clever. NYCE1030 at Rob Shue. I think Debo will be a captain next year. Good call. Stephon Gilmore, thoughts on him on the Niners, or maybe make a trade with Miami for Xavier Howard? Is it possible to also sign Verrett for 1 year? The last piece of number one, let me start out with, yes, I believe Debo should and will be a captain. The last piece of it too, Jason Verrett, I think there's a distinct possibility. If no one else offers him a significant contract, I think he could be back. Ooh, Andrew, you are, sorry, blocked. I can't have you making derogatory comments like that. I tried timeout to give you a moment to reconsider. You didn't want to reconsider, and then you get blocked for that. Sorry, NYCE 1030. Had to take care of that. There was someone being disparaging in the comments, and that just doesn't fly. And I mean that respectfully. Like, I'm not taking shots at someone I blocked. I just can't have that on the channel, and I hope people appreciate that that's me asking others to be respectful, and if you're unable to be respectful, me respectfully saying this maybe isn't the place for you and moving on. There are other channels where potentially that's accepted. I don't know where. I hope not. I hope you just reconsider being hateful like that. That would be my ask, is take a moment to reconsider trolling in that way. Trolling in a way where it's fun and lighthearted is one thing. To poke fun at groups of people, just not cool in my book. Verrett, I do think could be back. The other piece is Stephon Gilmore, I'm guessing, will be too expensive and is on the wrong side of 30 to invest in a corner in that regard. Xavier Howard, I'd need to look at his contractual obligations because that's the biggest piece to me. Can the Niners afford to bring him in? I would love it as a fit, though. Jason coming in at Rob. Pep Hamilton would be a great quarterback coach, offensive coordinator. Developed Herbert and Davis Mills. I would love a Pep Hamilton addition to the coaching staff. No doubt. Nobody Gaming asking, Rob, are you going to do scouting live streams? Yes, I am. I am looking for new people to collaborate with where that's their strength, and that's what I'm going to bring in. Already got some things in the works. It will happen. HR coming in as our newest sneakerhead on the channel. I freaking love it. I love the fact that people are still considering supporting the channel through the off season. Yes. Lee Ving, dude got the shoe. That's right. Shoe fly don't bother me. You know how many times I've heard that as people directing it to Rob Shue, that yes, I agree. Vincent, people can be toxic online, and it is regrettable. I think those same people in person aren't that way, and we just have to reach them on some level that makes them understand that they're actually hurting other human beings. They think they're not. They think that you're in this magical world of online and it's not real and you can say whatever you want. Bullshit. What you say still impacts other human beings, even in the virtual world. I have had rude comments that have messed my days up. And I'm a positive, self-assured dude. But I have had a comment that throws me off. What if I were on the edge of depression? What if I had things going on in my life that you didn't know about and you made some comment like that and it sends me into a tailspin? By the way, I'm not talking to Vincent. I'm talking with Vincent. Vincent and I are on the same page on this one. I always want to say that when I have a comment up and I'm saying something like this, sort of preaching. And I don't mean to preach, but what I'm trying to reach is people who think that their comments do not impact other people. And that's just not the case. And I cannot drive it home enough that when you put that negative shit out there, you are hurting other human beings. And if you know that and you choose to do it anyway, then that's on you. But if you just don't realize, my ask is take a moment and think about it and realize that that could be your mom, your sister, your brother, your son, your daughter, your grandmother. Like, these are good people that you're probably insulting. And it just bugs me. It gets me a little bit, and wanted to talk about it. That was off the cuff. I hope it made sense. Archie coming in with super chat. First, I appreciate all you do. Streaming and creating content is hard. Thanks again for inspiring me. I finally did my first video. Love your channel. Go Niners. Keep doing what you do. Love you. Archie, fantastic, man. I hope people get over and check out that video, whatever Archie put together. I will try and check it out after this frickin' stream. I appreciate you coming in, and I'm glad that I was able to inspire in whatever way I was. Craig coming in, Oregon faithful, saying hey to the #1 sneakerhead. Craig, I love having fellow Oregon faithful. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. All right, looking for a couple more of the @Robs before I go to the final. Ooh, nobody gaming. @Rob, are you going to do a mock draft? Yes, this will be the first year that I do a mock draft and people actually care what I have to say about it. That's fantastic. I'm excited to do a mock draft that actually means something. You know who my favorite mock drafter is? Matt Barrows. If you haven't followed him for the release of his Draft Crush, he's now with The Athletic, and if you don't want to pay for a paywall, then you may not want to subscribe for The Athletic. I think it's quality content. I vouch for it, and I vouch for Matt Barrows. But it's worth going back and reading his free articles when he wasn't with The Athletic. I think he was with the Press Democrat for a little while. Anyway, he was with one of the other papers, and you can go back and read his hilarious, Matt Barrows, his writing tickles me in that way. I find it to be magnificent. I hope to have Matt Barrows on this program. I bought multiple copies of his book with the intention of bringing him on for an interview on this channel and giving out a copy of his book for a trivia question on that show. So Matt Barrows, if you see this, I have good intentions. I'm a good dude. I'm a positive dude. I want to bring you on the channel, and I want to promote your book in doing so. Hopefully I can get Matt Barrows on. All right. HR coming in. I'm in shoe 49er in Super Bowl in 12. That got bounced around, so I had a hard time reading it. I'm in shoe 49er in Super Bowl in 12 months. I think what we're saying there is the Niners are going to be in the Super Bowl in 12 months. HR was just excited, and therefore it came in as such. HR coming back in. Thank you. Rob's content is worth it. I appreciate that. Craig coming back in to say there are Oregon fans of this Portland Niner faithful right here. All right. Pointing out, if I want to see negativity, you should see this thing called Twitter. Believe me, it's why I'm actually more quiet on Twitter than I am in this space, is the frickin' negativity there is something else. It really is. Pete coming in. Are you doing live streams of the NFL draft? I will be in Vegas, and I will be doing live streams of the draft from frickin' Vegas. That's what we're going to be doing. Dustin Kohler, who is in the comments here, I can say his last name because now he's putting it in the comments. Dustin's going to be, he's putting together the trip. I'll be there with Dustin and Amanda, hopefully Mark Hicks. If you're listening, we expect you there in Vegas for the draft. So yes, I'll be doing live streams for the draft. William Bennett, we need a quarterback coach, and Kyle needs to learn to close out games. I totally agree, William Bennett, on both those accounts. We need a quarterback coach. I'm not thrilled with Rich Scangarello. No offense, Rich. No shots taken. I just don't see him as like an elite guy. He's kind of bounced around. You want an up-and-coming dude to be in there with Trey Lance. Come on. Come on already. All right, I will get back into your comments in just a minute. I am going to some of the last of the previously submitted questions here. All right, we went over the Bobby Turner question, and now we're going to Ian. Ian says, with McDaniel gone and Lynn coming in, how do you think this will affect our offense next year? Will Kyle step back a bit from play calling? My answer to that, Ian, is an emphatic no way in hell does Kyle Shanahan step back from play calling. Kyle Shanahan will call plays until someone rips those duties, that call sheet, from his cold, dead hand. I mean, I'm obviously just kidding, but seriously, Kyle seems to view himself as a rhythm play caller and not just a play designer. His ability to sniff out weaknesses in the defense and alter his attack is one of his strengths beyond just play design, and I don't see him giving that up. I think the percentage of motion could change slightly, but again, Anthony Lynn also uses motion on a great number of his play calls, as did Mike McDaniel. But I think that the intricacy of that motion might be a little less mad scientist-like, and that could be a good thing. This offense gets overly complicated in some key moments. I'm thinking of a motion play on a quarterback sneak in particular. I would say getting rid of unnecessary complications could actually be a benefit to our run game. Not to mention the addition of Trey frickin' Lance. All right, 2 more questions that were previously submitted, then I'm closing out on your thoughts. This one comes in from Rich M. What do you think is the most important thing Lance has to improve on for next season? I'm going to keep this simple. I think his touch in general needs to improve, but specifically his touch on the passes over the middle in particular. Because if you have balls careening off of receivers' hands in the middle of the field, that leads to turnovers. You need to be more like Jimmy Garoppolo in this one respect, in the ability to hit those passes in small windows over the middle of the field, put it on the receiver's hands, hopefully lead the receivers a little better than Jimmy Garoppolo was able to do. But you cannot have the hard charging passes that then are deflected off of the receiver's hands and are up for grabs in the middle of the field. It's fine when he uses that velocity on the exterior, on the edges, outside the numbers, because if it careens off of a receiver's hands there, it's most likely going out of bounds. Nobody's ball at that point. But if it goes pop up, 3 flies up in the middle of the field, that's trouble. That can lead to turnovers. So I think touch there is important. I watched him throw in that 4-man formation at Seattle. I was great seats, like, I don't know, 8 or 10 rows from where he was throwing, had a great view of it. And he was missing those close touch throws at in an alarming way. I mean, sailing the passes by a yard or 2. And so I do think that was throwing motion. I could then see him try and pop the wrist as if he was trying to get the correct motion that he's working on. I'm thrilled that Trey Lance, because of the limited amount he was put in, now has a longer period to really develop that throwing motion. Because it is under duress where players who have made major changes to their throwing motion tend to revert to those old habits. I don't think Trey did any of that this year. There's a greater chance this new motion sticks, and he is a better, more accurate pocket passer because of it. Last previously submitted question, then we're close to closing out on your comments. Again, just a reminder, if you enjoy the content, hit the like button before you go. Do you think the run game will improve or decline with Anthony Lynn? This one, to me, is just a quick answer, and it's improve. Look at the Bills in 15 and 16. Look at the Chargers for the 4 years that Anthony Lynn was there. 4 years there, 17, 18, 19, 20. And to me, this was going to happen no matter what. With the addition of Trey Lance, this rushing attack would have changed significantly, even if Mike McDaniel had been around. But to me, again, look back at those other squads that Anthony Lynn was a part of. I would look for a more balanced run game with Elijah Mitchell and a yet-to-be-determined second running back who split some of those carries. Because Anthony Lynn, whether it was Gillislee and LaShawn McCoy, or whether it was Melvin Gordon and the pass-catching back Austin Eckler, it was always a two-back system. And I think Shanahan prefers that too. So I would look for it to be two backs and then Trey Lance adding as well. Because look back at those 15 and 16 Buffalo teams. That was with Tyrod Taylor. Now he was able to have success with a statue quarterback in Phillip Rivers his first few years in LA with the Chargers, San Diego at that point. But look at the success he had in the rookie year for Justin Herbert. Man, I'm excited by the addition of Anthony Lynn. I hope you guys are as well. To me, that was a quality add on the staff. All right, back into your comments to close out. Mark coming in with the super chat. Doesn't the addition of Lynn, former head coach of Rookie of the Year Justin Herbert, play a role in helping Lance? Yes, it does. It helps that Lynn has extensive experience with mobile quarterbacks. See Tyrod Taylor reference in 2015, 2016. It helps that Justin Herbert felt very close to Lynn and viewed him as a positive influence in his rookie year. Yes, Mark, I am all about Anthony Lynn. It's why I was headed out the door. I was going to play poker with one of my college buddies at his place, man. Go play some Texas Hold'em on a Friday night. And the news on Anthony Lynn broke. I popped back on the channel not wearing Niners gear, which is unheard of for me. I had on the standard Portland outfit for this time of year, which is a flannel. I grew up with grunge music. I now live in Portland. I got to keep up my rep as a Portland resident. So yes, I had my flannel on and I talked about the fact that, man, I loved that hire. And the more I read up on Anthony Lynn, the more I look into it, the more I like it. Go watch the NFL films breakdown or documentary of him and the first responders. He was hit by a car at some ridiculous rate of speed coming off an off-ramp, was apparent. I mean, this seems like a little bit of hyperbole and exaggeration, but was thrown through the air a considerable distance and took considerable body damage even to his face. If you're sensitive to descriptions of physical injury, then be warned of it. It is quite graphic in its description, not in any pictures, but in its description. But he's a leader of men. He is a passionate dude, and it comes through in everything that he says. Go watch Hard Knocks. Watch the way in which players respond to him. I think it was a huge deal to bring in Anthony Lynn, and I'm a huge fan. All right, I'm going to get through the rest of your comments here, and then we will wrap this up. That Niner guy at Rob Shue, when the Niners are in the Super Bowl next year, drinks on me. That Niner guy, I hope that we are doing that. I hope we are getting together and drinks are on you, because that means the Niners are in and winning the Super Bowl. Here we go. Rob Smith at Rob Shue. Are you and Jason Aponte planning on doing any off-season content together? The two of you are an awesome duo. No doubt. I am going to attempt to get back all of my favorites during the offseason. I am definitely getting Jason Aponte back on the channel. I definitely want to have Eric Crocker back on the channel. I got some other guys that are up in the pipeline right now. It will be an epic offseason. Bullpup, I'm not going to put that one up, but yeah, the Portland area is flooded with businesses that you reference. Nobody Gaming at Rob, how do I become a member? I guess after you hit the subscribe button, it becomes a join button. It's difficult to do on an iPhone, but from the desktop version or on an Android, the join button is right where the subscribe button used to be. And then it gives you options on how you want to join and support the channel. AJB at Rob, which quarterback guru is Trey working with in the offseason? Great question. I don't know if it's one of the guys that he was working with before when coming out of college. I will get that information and get it back to you. Jason at Rob, just want to say I really appreciate your viewer interaction. Tried to donate Super Chat, but I'm stationed way out in Guam, and for some reason that's blocked here. Thanks for the quality content. Jason, I appreciate people who come in regardless. I appreciate that you wanted to donate in that fashion, but I appreciate you being here no matter what. Again, I love the people that are just here watching. I appreciate the people who go that extra mile and like and subscribe to the channel, because that helps me get more people viewing the videos, and that certainly is what I am after. But for the people that support the channel in the super chats and joining it, that just goes above and beyond. And you know, I don't expect that from anybody, nor do I require it in order to have the dialogue, Jason. I value the dialogue no matter what, and I'm glad that comes through to you. And I also want to say thank you for your service. I probably should have led with that. The fact that you are out there in Guam, I hope that you enjoy being out there. I hope that it's a beautiful place in the world. I'd be interested to hear about it at some point in time, because I haven't done a hell of a lot of traveling my day. I've been fortunate enough to go to some parts of Europe, but haven't been to large parts of Asia, nor have I been to a bunch of places that I'd like to get to. So I'm a little jealous that you got that exposure. All right, Ron E. Niner, at Rob Shue, do they bring back Verrett? I think maybe. Because he's got so many injuries, I can't imagine he gets a lot of interest. Ooh, it'll be tough. Yeah, I predict that Jason Verrett comes back on a one-year deal. JG1, quarterback guru, Tom House is in Southern California and has a good camp for Trey. That would be great. I think Tom House would be an ideal candidate. Matthew W. At Rob, Jacksonville offers you the first overall pick for Bosa. Do you take it? Goodness gracious. What a freaking hypothetical. I don't know. No, I don't. I pay Bosa. I think he's a freak. Will he have some more injuries? Yeah, it's the NFL. The odds of that are good. I mean, look at J.J. Watt and his storied career, but also the big injuries. I think he still contributed. Now, maybe that's an argument against, because the Texans were never able to even come close to getting over the hump. But to me, with what the 49ers look to do on defense, to have a guy like Nick Bosa, you lock that down. And even though it's going to be $30 million a year, you can't count on hitting on another first-round pick. You basically take it down to like a first overall. I'll give you like 60-40 odds. But, man, you got 100% odds that Nick Bosa is a stud. You're going to have to pay for that, but I think it's worth it. William Bennett, at Rob Shue, would love to work on a roundtable with you, Rob. William, we will make a roundtable of the Sneakerhead All-Stars happen. You just gave me the inspiration. You, Sean951, like, we got a couple of folks that are already clearly going to be in that roundtable. William, let's make that happen. Joseph Manna, another sneakerhead on the channel, at Rob Shue. Will McDaniel stick? Dolphins 2022 record. I go back and forth on this, Joseph, whether I want to go and lay some money in Vegas on the Dolphins' chance at winning the division. Oh, gosh, it's tough. I think they got the talent and he's got the genius. I think above 500. I'm going to give him 9 wins his first season and upward trajectory from there. I think Mike McDaniel sticks in Miami. I don't like his decision to work for Stephen Ross, but the rest of the organization seems fine in my book, and they've got the talent. Man, I'm on board with Mike McDaniel. Ike Sanders coming in, at Rob Shue. Why doesn't someone just call Steve Young? You can tell he likes Lance and loves Kyle. He seems excited about the 49ers' future since drafting Lance. I would absolutely love to bring in Steve Young. I think you're probably suggesting as a quarterback's coach. I would love that. I don't think Steve wants that. I think Steve likes his cushy job on television where he does not have to spend 90, 100 hours a week preparing for the upcoming opponent. Being an assistant coach in the NFL is a thankless job. I mean, you are ground into dust and worked hard. You got to love it. You got to love it. And I think Steve is up there in age now. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. But if he wanted to, I would welcome him in, no question. Bullpup, an interesting ask. Would I pay Jadeveon Clowney? I would, if his market is soft, I would consider it. But no, I would not invest heavily in him at all. Jaguayo56 with the super chat. At Rob Shue, our next special teams coach has to improve that unit. Does Shanahan just run his running backs until they are all used up? Hope you stay blessed. Peace. Appreciate that, Jaguayo. Yes, I think you need to have a great special teams coach, but then you got to back him up by investing in the draft. That, to me, is the key. Those 3 7th-rounders, use at least one on special teams unit, bringing in a core special teams guy. The Patriots do it on a regular basis, and that to me is why their units are so successful on special teams year in, year out. All right, last one. Sean951 Niners coming in with the chat. At Rob Shue, McDaniel will give back a first-rounder for Jimmy Garoppolo. Nothing better than a quarterback that knows his system to help him look good. Their defense is fine already. Come on, Mike. Give us one back. Sean951 Niners attempting to will it into existence. I don't even think Sean wholeheartedly believes that this is going to happen, but man, wouldn't it be sweet if it did? I think 2nd and 4th is my official prediction, and I'm sticking with it on Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm thrilled that everyone was here to exude this type of passion for an off-season mailbag. I am freaking excited for the offseason. It's going to be epic. Do not miss the content on the channel. It will be coming regularly during the offseason. I will be back tomorrow for the regular Between Two Beards with Random McMahon as I knock my microphone around tomorrow at 5 p.m. Tune in for that. And until then, cheers, 49er faith.